The country with no government, no police, no bureaucrats. And yet, life goes on. Peasants divide the land themselves and settle everything in village assemblies. This is not a utopia from a book. This is southern Ukraine in the year 1919. And the man who built this state without a state was a poor peasant son, Nestor Makhno, Huliaipole, 1888, in a poor peasant family. A fifth child is born. Nestor, his father dies before the boy turns one. His mother is left to raise five sons alone. She dreamed her quiet boy would become a monk. Instead, she was raising a rebel. From the age of 7, Nestor herds cattle for wealthy farmers. By 12, he is a hired hand. Beatings, humiliation, pennies for work from dawn to dusk, lessons the young farmhand never forgot. Then came the iron foundry in his hometown, dirt, furnace, heat, and starvation wages. It is here that 17-year-old Makhno first hears the word anarchism, and it changes everything. 1905, revolution sweeps the empire. Makhno joins an anarchist cell, the Union of Poor Farmers. They rob the rich and hand the money to the poor, avengers to the peasants, bandits to the police, attacks on police, expropriations, a 20 years old arrest, and a death sentence. The gallows are commuted to hard labor for life only because he was underage when the crimes were committed. 9 years in Moscow's Butyrka prison, shackles, tuberculosis, and solitary for every act of defiance. He refuses to stand for the prison governor and spends half his sentence in a freezing punishment cell. But prison becomes his university. His cellmate, the anarchist Archinov, gives him an education. Behind bars, his face takes shape. People need no masters. They can govern themselves. February 1917, the empire collapses. Political prisoners walk free. Makhno goes home. Huliaipole elects him head of the Peasants' Union, and he starts with what matters most. The landlord's estates are divided among the peasants. No compensation, no permission from any capital. In 1918, German and Austrian armies occupy Ukraine. Makhno vanishes underground. That summer, he travels to Moscow for advice and meets Lenin himself inside the Kremlin. Lenin calls anarchism a utopia. Makhno does not argue. He returns to the steppe to prove him wrong with deeds. In the autumn, he returns with a handful of fighters, and the steppe erupts in revolt. After a daring victory at Debrivki, the peasants give him the name that becomes a legend, Batko, father. He is 29 years old, but to thousands of peasants, Batko's word already outweighs any decree. His army grows from hundreds to tens of thousands, farmers by day, insurgents by night. Their signature weapon, the tachanka, a machine gun mounted on a light-sprung cart, speed instead of armor, hundreds of kilometers a day. The army appears out of nowhere, strikes hard, and melts back into the steppe like a ghost. Black banners read liberty or death, an army with no ranks, no epaulets, and no conscription. And it fights everyone who brings Ukraine a new master, the whites, the reds, the occupiers. Between the battles, Makhno builds his life's true project, the Free Territory, 7 million people, a region the size of a small European country with no state at all. Instead of a government, free councils. Every village decides its own affairs. The land is farmed by communes, ironically named after Rosa Luxemburg and even after Makhno himself. At his side stands his wife, Halina Kuzmenko, a village teacher who will follow him through every front, to the very end. Schools open, theaters, free newspapers roll off the presses in the middle of a civil war. It was no paradise. War, requisitions, cruelty. The ideal kept cracking under the weight of the front. But the attempt itself was unprecedented. Anarchism, not in theory, in practice. Even his enemies admitted it. Under Batko, a peasant felt like the master of his own land for the first time in his life. 1919, Denikin's White Army storms north to bring back the old Russia. Makhno strikes a deal with the Bolsheviks, fragile and forced, but the common enemy is stronger. September at Perehonivka, the Makhnovists smash the Whites and tear Denikin's rear wide open. Historians agree that single blow derailed the White March on Moscow. The price is terrible. Makhno's brothers are executed, and Huliaipole changes hands more than 10 times. The moment the common enemy retreats, the Reds declare Makhno an outlaw. 1920, another alliance, this time against Baron Wrangel in Crimea. The Makhnovists fought the freezing Syvash lagoon at night. Crimea falls, the war is all but won. 2 weeks after the victory, the Bolsheviks strike from behind. The Makhnovist commanders are executed. Red Army divisions march on Huliaipole against yesterday's allies. For 9 months, Makhno and the remnants of his army circle the steppes, wounded more than 10 times. They send Budionny's legendary Red Cavalry after him, but no one can catch Batko in his own steppe. August 1921, with his last fighters, he crosses the Romanian border forever. Then come the camps, the prisons, and escapes through Poland and Germany, and finally Paris. The legendary Batko now works as a carpenter and a film studio laborer. Poverty, tuberculosis, a foreign land. He writes his memoirs and argues about the future of anarchism to his very last breath. Spanish anarchists come to his tiny apartment seeking advice for their own coming revolution. July 25th, 1934, Makhno dies in a Paris hospital. He is 45 years old. Halina and their daughter Elena are left alone in a foreign land. Ahead of them lie camps and exile. His ashes rest in Père Lachaise cemetery beside the communards of Paris. 500 people walked behind his coffin, French workers and emigres, and not a single flag of any state. And the steppe remembers once there was a state without a state here, and the people ruled it themselves.